Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Going Live with Global Learning. I'm Tia, and today I am here with Randy. So Randy, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name is Randy Kudson. I'm a pathway navigator here with Kirkwood Community College. I've been here for going on 11 years now.
Oh, wow.
And so I have feet in both sides of the college. I work on the continuing education side, providing short-term training, non-degree type of short-term training for students that do not want to do the two-year programs here. And then conversely, on the other side, I work with credit students that are doing the career and technical side of Kirkwood. So been here doing 11 years, and I'm glad I'm here.
That's awesome. You do a lot of stuff for students. That's really cool.
Yeah.
What brought you to Kirkwood then?
Well, it was really, I have a degree in social work and worked for nonprofits for a long time. And there's a lot of this, the clients that I worked with were here at Kirkwood.
Really?
So,
Interesting.
While I wasn't an official employee here, I did a lot of student support of students while they were coming to campus. So, and then I got to see what Kirkwood is about when I was here. I'd do visits with students out here. Even though I wasn't a staff, I would meet them in between classes. So I got to see the campus, got to see the staff, and got to meet them. We had a very active community advisory board, and one of the staff was the dean of students from Kirkwood. So he was a great support for me as working with students, even though I wasn't on the credit side or working for Kirkwood. So I had a great relationship with the staff here.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. And so I know you have done some study abroad stuff before too, and some study abroad research.
Well, yeah. So I'm a first gen college student. So I went to a community college in North Iowa. And I had to look this up today. They do not have a study abroad program, so I'm not surprised it was not on my radar back then. And then I transferred down to the University of Iowa, where I got my undergraduate in social work. And it was there that the study abroad programs became something that I started thinking about. But as a poor college student, first gen, it was just something that wasn't on my radar to actually do or figure out if this was something I could do. But with a social work degree and about a semester before graduating, it was like, what's next? So I decided to explore Peace Corps, which is a 2-year program, and spent almost 3 years living in the Philippines.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So after the day I graduated from college, I came home and my acceptance letter was there. And then 3 months later, I packed my bag, my social work shingle, and moved to the Philippines, where I lived, there for almost 3 years.
Wow. What were you doing over there?
So all the volunteers were assigned to the different departments of the Philippine government. I was assigned to a rural health unit, and their big push on the local level was environmental sanitation. So I initiated a community water sealed toilet program, got funding for, and we raised in this one barrio, I had 28% of the households had sanitary toilets through this grant program that we initiated. We raised it to 100%. Wow. And then trying to teach my coworkers how to, at that time, do research to get funding so they could do this after I left.
Wow, that is amazing.
So, well, thank you. It was an interesting time. Obviously, living culturally immersed in a different environment, and being so far away from home. When I look back on it now, it dated, internet wasn't around, cell phones weren't around. So from that standpoint, I didn't see or speak with my family for almost 3 years.
Oh, my word.
So, so that's really where things started for me in terms of appreciating being able to study abroad. I was thinking about this. One of the books that was required for me when I was reading, it was, or in my social work class, was Beyond Culture, and it was really that kind of like the way you truly understand your own culture is to step outside of it and experience it from someplace else. So. Being in the Philippines for that length of time, really, I learned to be bicultural in terms of the Filipino culture, but then really taking a look at our own culture and how that the things that we take for granted and how we do things. And we had 10 weeks of in-country training. and before we started our official 2 years, and it was like we were all adult children going through socialization again, because I distinctly remember, we were assigned for host families, and I had to use the restroom for the first time. And I go there, and it's a bowl, it's a cement bowl with no tank, and I'm like, I don't know how this flushes.
Oh.
So, that level of like things we take for granted.
Oh,
so.
Yeah.
Being at learning those type of things. So what I appreciated, fast forward into the study abroad program, I went to Guatemala, and what I appreciated about that was that the students, we were living with host families, so you get that level of cultural immersion, through the study abroad program in terms of what we did, at least in Guatemala.
Wow, that is so cool. What is one experience that really impacted you during your times in the Philippines or in Guatemala?
Let's see. Wow, good question. Well, one of the things in terms of Guatemala was, again, watching the students from that perspective, because they were not much younger than what I was when I would join Peace Corps.
Okay.
So watching them from that perspective reminded myself what it was like back then, to go to a different place, prepping to go to a new place, and then seeing it through their eyes and remembering what that was like. So that was probably the most interesting thing for me about being in Guatemala, from watching it from the students' perspectives.
Wow. And you have that personal experience too, because you're also doing the same thing too, going to another country, a whole new culture shock that you can understand.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so one of the things that was interesting for me going to Guatemala was the Philippines is in Central or Southeast Asia, but it was a colony of Spain for 400 years.
Really, I did not know that. Wow.
So it was, and so as many of the Central American countries were also colonies of Spain for a number of years. I always had this hypothesis that the Filipino culture is very similar to more similar to Central American countries than it was in the Southeast Asia. And it was we had one of our assignments for global studies was to do journals. So one of my journal entries was what I called cultural schizophrenia, because there was so much about the Guatemalan culture in terms of the architecture, the language, that was so similar to what I experienced in the Philippines. That I was having this. So I was having this cultural deja vu.
Huh. So. Wow, that is so interesting. So did it make it easier in a way when you went to Guatemala?
Well, it did from a lot of certain points, but there's so much in terms of the language that the Tagalog is the official language of the Philippines, and so much there's so much Spanish influence in Tagalog that when I would try to speak Spanish, which I took in college, they would say something like "How are you?" in Spanish, and I would automatically answer them in Tagalog, not realizing that I was speaking the wrong language to them. I finally just kind of gave up trying to speak Spanish, because I wasn't making that transition because of how easy it was to, what I heard from "How are you?" is very similar to in both languages. So I was answering them in the wrong language. So I gave up after the first week. So
interesting. What was one of the hardest things during your time abroad?
For the Philippines, when I was there, obviously it was not being able to communicate with my family.
It was so hard.
It was all snail mail type of thing. It would take a week to get a letter. So that was the communication back and forth. So, that was kind of again, looking at the technology that's developed. When I was in Guatemala, we happened to be there over New Year's, and which happens the New Year's Eve is my wife's birthday. So I'm in on WhatsApp, I think it was. I don't know what we were doing, but I was FaceTiming with my wife back in the United States, ringing in the New Year's together and, at the end of her birthday. So that level of technology and how close things are it's remarkable how really small the technology has made things a lot smaller. So
that is so nice too. Yeah, your two experiences, when you had no communication, now you're able to to call your wife. That's awesome. What is some advice you would have for international students or even students here at Kirkwood, whether it's culture shock or studying abroad?
Well, I think just, like I said earlier, the book that I read was about, how do we fully understand our cultures to try to step out of it and see it from another angle. Just doing that in and of itself. So I would encourage, students to, if you have the opportunity to do study abroad, to do that. I would take it a step further and, to really investigate the different locations that the study abroad program does regarding, what the accommodations are. So being able to stay with the host family, because you get that side of the culture, that personal side of it, and see how they live versus if the accommodations are in a hotel, you just really don't get, you get a feel for it, but it's really, the host families is really the thing I would encourage students to take a look at, and what those accommodations are when you're there for the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whatever it may be.
Right, because in that home, you're experiencing their daily life.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in the whole culture.
And that's huge.
It's huge.
Too, yeah. So, and even students, if you don't do the study abroad program, the traveling, if you have that bug, there's Airbnb does. You can rent. A lot of families in different countries will rent their rooms. So doing that and getting that side of the culture. I was looking at something today. It was called Workaway. It's that it's a program where you can go, different places and volunteer. They do room and board, and you put like 4 or 5 hours, so you can travel that way as well to experience it. If you're not in college or after college, so there's different ways of experiencing that.
Wow, that's so interesting. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and for coming here today. And thank you everyone for watching. If you want to see any more of our episodes, you can check it out on our YouTube channel. And have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thanks.